Jake drove the same route every night as an ambulance driver. Saving lives in the city's dark streets was his job. But the injured woman he found that night would save not just his life, but his heart. The first words she spoke when she woke up would change Jake's world forever. The radio crackled to life at 11:47 p.m., cutting through the steady hum of the ambulance engine as Jake Morrison navigated the quiet streets of downtown Seattle. After 6 years as a paramedic and ambulance driver, he had developed an almost supernatural ability to predict when the radio would spring to life with another emergency call. Unit 47, we have a single vehicle accident on Maple Ridge Road, mile marker 23. Possible unconscious female driver. Respond code 3. Jake's partner, Maria Santos, was already reaching for the radio before the dispatcher finished speaking. Unit 47 responding, ETA 12 minutes. Jake flipped on the sirens and lights, feeling the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with emergency calls. At 32, he had seen every type of accident, overdose, and medical emergency the city could throw at him. He approached each call with professional calm, but there was something about this particular night that felt different. Maple Ridge Road wound through a wooded area on the outskirts of the city, a stretch that was notorious for accidents during bad weather. Tonight, a light rain had made the asphalt slick and treacherous. As they rounded the final curve, Jake could see the flashing lights of the police cars that had arrived first on scene. "Looks like a sedan went off the road and hit that oak tree," Maria observed, gathering her medical bag as Jake pulled the ambulance up behind the police vehicles. "Driver's still in the car." Officer Rodriguez approached them as they stepped out of the ambulance. "Single occupant, female, appears to be unconscious. She's breathing but unresponsive. Car's stable, but the front end is pretty smashed up." Jake grabbed his trauma kit and followed Maria to the wreckage. The silver sedan had indeed collided with a massive oak tree, the impact crushing the front of the vehicle but leaving the passenger compartment relatively intact. Through the spider-webbed windshield, Jake could see a woman slumped over the steering wheel. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Maria called out as she carefully opened the driver's side door, which had been pried open by the fire department. "We're paramedics. We're here to help you." The woman didn't respond. Jake positioned himself on the other side of the vehicle, shining his flashlight to help Maria assess the situation. That's when he got his first clear look at the accident victim's face, and his world stopped. Even with blood trickling from a cut on her forehead and her dark hair disheveled, Jake recognized her instantly. The high cheekbones, the slightly upturned nose, the full lips that he had kissed countless times during their 3-year relationship that had ended a decade ago. Emma Chen, the woman he had planned to marry before she disappeared from his life without explanation, leaving only a note saying she had to go away and couldn't tell him why. Emma, whom he had spent years trying to forget and had never quite managed to get over completely. "Jake, you okay?" Maria's voice snapped him back to the present. "I need you to stabilize her neck while I check her vitals." Jake forced himself into professional mode, pushing aside the shock and confusion. His hands were steady as he carefully held Emma's head and neck in proper alignment while Maria worked. He had been trained to separate his personal feelings from his professional duties, but nothing had prepared him for this. "Pulse is strong, breathing is regular but shallow," Maria reported. "Pupils are responsive but sluggish. Probable concussion, possible internal injuries. Let's get her on the backboard and to the hospital." They worked with practiced efficiency, carefully extricating Emma from the vehicle and securing her to a spinal board. As they loaded her into the ambulance, Jake noticed she was wearing a wedding ring, a simple gold band that definitely hadn't been there 10 years ago. During the drive to Seattle General Hospital, Jake monitored Emma's vital signs while Maria radioed ahead to the emergency department. Emma remained unconscious, her face peaceful despite the circumstances. Jake found himself studying her features, looking for changes that a decade might have wrought. She looked older, certainly, but there was a maturity to her face that only enhanced her beauty. "Jake," Maria said quietly, glancing back from the driver's seat, "you seem unusually invested in this patient. Do you know her?" Jake hesitated for a moment before nodding. "We have history, from a long time ago." Maria's expression softened with understanding. "That's rough, partner. You want me to handle the handoff at the hospital?" "No, I'm fine. It was a long time ago." But as they pulled into the hospital's emergency bay, Jake wasn't sure he was fine at all. The emergency department was surprisingly quiet for a Friday night, and Emma was quickly taken into Trauma Bay 3. Jake and Maria gave their report to Dr. Sarah Kim, the attending physician, detailing the circumstances of the accident and Emma's condition during transport. "Any identification?" Dr. Kim asked as the trauma team took over Emma's care. "Her purse was in the car," Officer Rodriguez said, appearing with a designer handbag. "Driver's license says Emma Chen Morrison, age 30, lives in Portland." Jake felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Chen Morrison. She had taken his name, even though they had never married. But why? And why was she in Seattle, hundreds of miles from the Portland address on her license? "Jake," Maria touched his arm gently, "our shift is over in an hour. You want to stick around and see how she does?" Jake nodded, unable to trust his voice. They completed their paperwork and restocked the ambulance, but Jake's mind was racing with questions. Why had Emma left so suddenly 10 years ago? Why had she taken his name? And what was she doing driving alone on a rainy night on the outskirts of Seattle? As they finished their shift, Maria headed home to her family, but Jake found himself walking back toward the emergency department. He told himself he was just checking on a patient, but he knew it was more than that. Dr. Kim found him sitting in the waiting area at 2:30 a.m. "Are you family?" she asked. "Not exactly. I'm the paramedic who brought her in, Jake Morrison." Dr. Kim's eyes widened slightly. "Morrison? The same last name as on her license?" "It's complicated," Jake said. "How is she?" "She's stable. Concussion, some bruised ribs, and a lot of scrapes and bruises, but nothing life-threatening. She's been drifting in and out of consciousness, but she should be fully awake soon." "Are you sure you're not family? Because she's been asking for Jake." Jake's heart skipped a beat. "She's been asking for me?" "She keeps saying, 'Where's Jake?' I need to find Jake." We assumed she meant her husband, given the name on her license. Before Jake could respond, a nurse appeared at Dr. Kim's shoulder. "Doctor, the patient in Trauma 3 is awake and asking for someone named Jake again." Dr. Kim looked at Jake questioningly. "Would you like to see her? It might help calm her down if she's asking for you specifically." Jake followed Dr. Kim down the hallway, his heart pounding harder than it had during the emergency call. He had no idea what to expect. What would he say to the woman who had vanished from his life without explanation? What would she say to him? Emma was propped up in the hospital bed, looking small and fragile against the white sheets. She had a bandage on her forehead and her left arm was in a sling, but her eyes were alert. When she saw Jake in the doorway, her face crumpled with relief. "Jake," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I've been looking for you for so long." Jake stepped closer to the bed, his throat tight with emotion. "Emma, what are you talking about? You left me, remember? 10 years ago." Emma looked confused, her brow furrowing with concentration. "Left you? I don't remember leaving you. I remember we were supposed to get married. I remember picking out a dress. But then," she pressed her hand to her forehead, "everything after that is so foggy." Dr. Kim stepped forward. "Mrs. Chen Morrison, you've suffered a concussion. It's not unusual to have some memory issues. They may clear up as you recover." "But I remember Jake," Emma said, looking directly at him. "I remember loving Jake. I remember that we were going to have a little house with a garden, and you were going to teach me to change the oil in my car." Jake sat down in the chair beside her bed, overwhelmed by the mixture of emotions flooding through him. "Emma, you left me a note. You said you had to go away and couldn't explain why. I looked for you for months, but it was like you had disappeared from the earth." Emma's eyes filled with tears again. "I don't remember writing any note. The last thing I clearly remember is trying on wedding dresses with my sister. After that, everything is jumbled and confusing until I woke up here and saw you." Dr. Kim cleared her throat. "I'll give you some privacy, but I should mention that memory loss following a head injury can be temporary or permanent. Sometimes memories return gradually, and sometimes they don't return at all." After the doctor left, Jake and Emma sat in silence for several minutes, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Emma spoke. "Jake, I know this is confusing, and I don't understand what happened either. But I need you to know that I never stopped loving you. Even when I can't remember why or how, I know that I love you." Jake felt his carefully constructed walls crumbling. For 10 years, he had carried the pain of Emma's abandonment. He had convinced himself that she had simply changed her mind about marrying him, that she had found someone else or decided she wanted a different life. He had never considered that there might be another explanation. "Emma, I need to understand what happened. Where have you been for 10 years? Why is your license under the name Jake Morrison if we never got married?" Emma closed her eyes, clearly struggling to access memories that seemed to be locked away. "I remember fragments. I remember being scared about something, but I can't remember what. I remember a man telling me I had to go away, but I can't see his face. And I remember changing my name because—" She opened her eyes and looked at Jake with desperate intensity. "Because I wanted to keep part of you with me, even if I couldn't have you." Jake reached out and took her uninjured hand, intertwining their fingers the way they used to do when they were together. "We're gonna figure this out, okay? Whatever happened, whatever made you leave, we'll figure it out together." Over the next few days, while Emma recovered from her injuries, Jake found himself spending every free moment at the hospital. He had used his vacation time to stay with her, and Maria had covered his shifts without complaint. Emma's memories remained frustratingly fragmented, but her feelings for Jake were consistent and strong. "I know this sounds crazy," Emma said on her third day in the hospital, "but being with you feels like coming home after a very long, confusing trip." Jake had been thinking the same thing. Despite the bizarre circumstances and unanswered questions, being with Emma felt natural and right in a way that nothing had for the past decade. "Emma, I have to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Do you remember being married to someone else? Do you have a family somewhere who might be looking for you?" Emma shook her head. "I've been trying so hard to remember, but I don't think I was married. The ring." She looked down at the gold band on her finger. "I think I bought it for myself. I remember standing in a jewelry store crying, telling the salesperson that I wanted to pretend I belonged to someone." The sadness in her voice broke Jake's heart. "You always belonged with me, Emma. I never stopped loving you either." On Emma's fourth day in the hospital, they had an unexpected visitor. A woman in her early 30s with Emma's same dark hair and delicate features appeared in the doorway, her face streaked with tears. "Emma? Oh my God, Emma, we've been looking for you everywhere." Emma stared at the woman with confusion. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" The woman's face fell. "Emma, it's me. It's Lily, your sister." Jake stood up, extending his hand to the newcomer. "I'm Jake Morrison. Are you really Emma's sister?" Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "We've been searching for her for 10 years. She disappeared 3 days before her wedding. The police said she probably got cold feet and ran away, but I knew something was wrong. Emma wouldn't have left without saying goodbye to me." Emma gripped Jake's hand tightly. "I was supposed to marry Jake." "Yes," Lily said, sitting down on the other side of Emma's bed. "You two were crazy about each other. You used to call me every day to talk about wedding plans. You were so excited about marrying Jake that you drove everyone crazy with your happiness." Jake felt a mixture of relief and anger. Relief that Emma hadn't left him by choice, and anger that someone or something had taken her away from him. "Lily," Jake said carefully, "what exactly happened the night Emma disappeared?" Lily wiped her eyes with a tissue. "She had gone to her apartment to get some things before moving in with you after the wedding. I was supposed to meet her there to help her pack. When I arrived, the apartment was a mess, like someone had searched through everything. Emma was gone, and there was no sign of where she had gone." "What about the note?" Jake asked. "The one she supposedly left for me?" Lily looked confused. "What note? Emma never left a note. We found her car abandoned at the bus station, but no note." Jake's mind reeled. Someone had written that note, someone who had wanted him to believe that Emma had left voluntarily. But who and why? "Lily," Emma said quietly, "I need you to tell me everything you remember about the days before I disappeared. Maybe it will help me remember." Over the next several hours, Lily recounted the events leading up to Emma's disappearance. Emma and Jake had been together for 3 years and engaged for 6 months. Emma worked as a graphic designer for a small advertising firm, and Jake was already working as a paramedic. They had found a small house to rent and were planning a simple wedding with family and close friends. But as Lily talked, she mentioned something that made both Emma and Jake freeze. "There was that weird thing with your boss," Lily said. "What was his name?" "Richard something. You said he had been acting strange around you, making comments about how you shouldn't get married so young, how you were too talented to tie yourself down." Emma's face went pale. "Richard," she whispered. "I remember being afraid of someone named Richard." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Emma, what do you remember about Richard?" Emma closed her eyes, concentrating hard. He was older, maybe in his 40s. He said he could make me famous, get my designs into national campaigns. But he said I had to choose between my career and marrying you." "And what did you tell him?" Lily asked gently. "I told him I chose Jake," Emma said, her voice growing stronger with certainty. "I told him that I could have both a career and a marriage, and that I didn't need him to be successful." The memories were clearly coming back now, and Emma's face was filled with a mixture of fear and anger. "He said he couldn't let me make such a big mistake. He said he would save me from myself." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "He said if I wouldn't listen to reason, he would have to take more drastic measures." Jake stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. "Are you telling me that your boss kidnapped you to prevent you from marrying me?" "I think so," Emma said, tears streaming down her face. "I remember being drugged. I remember waking up in a strange place and being told that you didn't want me anymore, that you had moved on. They showed me fake photos of you with another woman." Lily gasped. "Emma, that's horrible. We have to call the police." "We will," Jake said grimly. "But first, I need to understand what happened during those 10 years, Emma. Where have you been?" Emma's brow furrowed as she struggled to access the locked memories. "I was in a place, like a treatment facility, but not a hospital. They said I had had a breakdown, that I was delusional about having a fiancé named Jake. They said my family had committed me there for my own good." Jake felt sick. "For 10 years? They gave me medication that made everything foggy. I couldn't think clearly most of the time. But recently, the medication wasn't working as well, and I started remembering fragments. I remembered your name, and I remembered that you lived in Seattle, so I escaped." "You escaped?" Lily asked. Emma nodded. 3 days ago. I took some money from the office and got on a bus to Seattle. I was trying to find you, Jake, but I didn't know where to look. I was driving around, looking for anything that might help me remember where you lived, when I lost control of the car." Jake returned to Emma's bedside and took both of her hands in his. "Emma, you're safe now. We're going to make sure that whoever did this to you pays for it." The next morning, Jake, Emma, and Lily sat down with Detective Sarah Martinez from the Seattle Police Department. Emma told her story, and Detective Martinez took detailed notes. "This is definitely a criminal matter," Detective Martinez said. "Kidnapping, false imprisonment, fraud. There are multiple charges that could apply here. But we'll need to locate this Richard person and the facility where Ms. Chen was held." Emma provided what details she could remember about the location. It was in a rural area, surrounded by trees, with a high fence around the perimeter. The name of the facility was something like Peaceful Meadows or Quiet Valley. "We'll start investigating immediately," Detective Martinez promised. "In the meantime, Ms. Chen, I'd recommend staying in a safe location with people you trust." Jake didn't hesitate. "She'll stay with me. I have a secure apartment, and I'm trained in emergency response." Emma looked at him with gratitude and something deeper, a love that had survived 10 years of separation and trauma. Over the following weeks, while the police investigation proceeded, Jake and Emma began the delicate process of rebuilding their relationship. Emma was staying in Jake's guest bedroom, and they were taking things slowly, getting to know each other again after a decade apart. "I keep expecting to wake up and find out this is all a dream," Emma said one evening as they sat on Jake's balcony, watching the sunset over the city. "For so long, they convinced me that you were just a fantasy my sick mind had created." Jake reached over and took her hand. "You're real, I'm real, and what we had was real." We just have to figure out how to build something new from where we are now." Emma's memories continued to return gradually. She remembered more details about her captivity, including the name of her captor, Richard Henley, her former boss at the advertising agency. She also remembered that he had forged documents making it appear that she had committed herself voluntarily to the private psychiatric facility he had chosen. The police investigation moved quickly once they had a name and more specific details about the facility. Within 2 weeks, they had located Peaceful Valley Residential Treatment Center in rural Oregon and had arrested Richard Henley at his home in Portland. Detective Martinez called with the update on a Tuesday morning. "We found evidence in Henley's home, including forged documents, photos he had doctored to convince Emma that Jake had moved on, and detailed records of the payments he made to the facility to keep Emma there." "What will happen to him?" Jake asked. "He's looking at multiple felony charges, including kidnapping, false imprisonment, fraud, and conspiracy. The facility is also under investigation for their role in keeping Emma against her will." Jake hung up the phone and turned to Emma, who had been listening to his side of the conversation. "It's over," he said. "They got him." Emma burst into tears. Tears of relief, anger, and grief for the 10 years that had been stolen from them. Jake held her while she cried, and he found himself crying too for the first time since she had disappeared. "What do we do now?" Emma asked when the tears had subsided. Jake looked at the woman he had never stopped loving, the woman who had been returned to him under the most extraordinary circumstances. "Now we start over," he said. "We can't get back the time that was taken from us, but we can make sure that every day from now on counts." Emma smiled through her tears. "I'd like that, but Jake, I need you to know that I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. What happened to me? It changed me. I have trust issues now, and sometimes I have nightmares. I'm going to need therapy to work through all of this." Jake cupped her face gently in his hands. "Emma, I'm not the same person either. Losing you changed me too. I've spent 10 years being afraid to get close to anyone because I was terrified they would disappear the way you did. We'll figure it out together." 6 months later, Jake and Emma stood in the same church where they had planned to be married 10 years earlier. Emma's sister Lily was there, along with Jake's parents and the close friends who had never given up hope that Emma would be found. Emma wore a simple white dress, not a wedding gown, because they had decided this was more of a recommitment ceremony than a traditional wedding. They had both grown and changed too much to simply pick up where they had left off a decade earlier. "10 years ago, we promised to love each other for better or worse," Jake said as they exchanged new rings. "We couldn't have imagined how much worse it would get or how much better it would feel to find each other again." Emma smiled through happy tears. "I lost 10 years of my life, but I never lost my love for you. Not even when they tried to convince me that you were just a dream." As they kissed, Jake reflected on the strange turns life could take. If Emma hadn't been in that accident, if he hadn't been the paramedic on duty that night, she might have spent the rest of her life searching for him while he remained convinced that she had abandoned him. But sometimes, fate finds a way to correct even the most terrible injustices. After the ceremony, as they danced to the same song they had chosen for their first wedding, Emma whispered in Jake's ear, "Thank you for saving my life." Jake pulled back to look at her. "You saved mine first, just by coming back to me." "I mean it literally," Emma said with a smile. "If you hadn't been working that night, if you hadn't found me in that accident, I might never have remembered who I really was." Jake spun her around gently, marveling at how natural it felt to hold her in his arms again. "Then I guess we saved each other," he said. As the evening wound down and their guests began to leave, Jake and Emma found themselves alone on the church steps, looking up at the stars. "What happens now?" Emma asked, echoing the question she had posed months earlier in the hospital. Jake smiled and pulled her closer. "Now we live. We make up for lost time. We build the life we always planned to have. And if we run into more obstacles, then we face them together. That's what partners do." Emma leaned against him, feeling truly safe for the first time in 10 years. "I love you, Jake Morrison." I love you too, Emma Chen Morrison, and this time, nothing is going to separate us. As they walked hand in hand to Jake's car, Emma thought about the long, dark road that had led her back to the man she loved. It had been a terrible journey, full of pain and confusion and stolen time. But in the end, love had found a way to survive even the most impossible circumstances. And sometimes, she realized, the most beautiful stories are the ones where love gets a second chance to triumph over everything that tried to destroy it. The ambulance driver had indeed saved the accident victim's life, but what neither of them had expected was how completely they would save each other's hearts as well. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories about love that survives against all odds. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story that proves that true love can overcome even the darkest circumstances.